Hello, Disturbed Nerds, and welcome to the spooky episode.
This is our Halloween special, which I'm super excited about. As you can see, we have Wonder Woman and Sherlock.
So much effort went into this.
I was going to be like full costume, but I'm not feeling good, so I'm just going to put on my tiara.
Same.
Tiara is enough.
I worked 60 hours. I'm a little done.
I just haven't been feeling good. As you can tell, we have puppies in the background playing. But today we're going to be talking about horror movies and horror shows. Funny enough, before I got on this call, I have been watching Happy Death Day, which is a Blumhouse movie, I believe. And when it comes to Blumhouse, it is like a hit or miss when it comes to that.
I remember seeing trailers for Happy Death Day, but I felt like it was going to be a B/C rate horror film, and I went, I'll skip it.
It wasn't bad. I really liked it. I liked that one. They actually had a Happy Death Day 2 one that my friend Tosha, Trinity, and I went. We went and we actually were like, okay, so as always, the sequel is not as good. It was good up until the end. Then we got really confused because they were trying to do something, and we're like, no, don't do that. Just stick with what you're good at. But Blumhouse is always like a hit or miss when it comes to it. They're doing The Craft Legacy, which Mom and I want to see. Yeah. Because first of all, The Craft is like a 90s movie, female witches kind of
I've seen bits and pieces of the original The Craft. However, I've heard the reboot, I guess you would call it, wasn't too hot. It just kind of seemed over the top, but bland at the same time.
Yeah, and then I actually watched this the other day, The Covenant. It's not necessarily horror, and it's 2006, and it's cheesy. The dialogue is absolutely terrible. They classify it as horror, even though it's really not scary. But I love watching it because it's really funny to see baby Sebastian Stan and it's horrible, horrible freaking dialogue. And it's still one of my favorite movies because nostalgia and it's great. But it's like The Craft, but instead of girls, it's hot dudes. So I love horror movies, but I'm really, really picky.
So picky. I enjoy horror movies, but I don't like bad movies, so I don't watch like bad horror movies just because they're bad. Like, I don't like the scary movies. I think they're incredibly dumb.
I don't like those either. I hate all of those.
I
like trashy.
Rewatched Addams Family, which was my childhood favorite horror movie. I watch it every year.
Love that movie. The second one's not as good, I don't think, but I still love the Addams Family. I enjoyed
the second one, but the first one just absolutely blew my mind.
Mm-hmm. Everyone, it's so good. I love it, and one point I'm going to be Morticia Addams for Halloween.
I want to be Wednesday, but I want a relationship that's like Gomez and Morticia's.
Right.
Have you seen the script for that movie?
Yes.
Okay, so the script for this movie is absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't seen it already, please go and Google the Addams Family script. It is amazing. Under the first scene that we first see Gomez and Morticia, where Morticia is waking up and she tells Gomez that it's too bright outside, please close the curtain. It literally says, like, please note that these two have lots of sex. I want to specifically imply that all they do is have sex. Like, that's in the director's notes, and it's fabulous.
I loved it. I loved
little
it so
nuggets,
much.
Like, Wednesday has to be deadpan, creepy. There's, like, little tidbits and really goodies. It's like, what, 145-page script? It's pretty long.
I don't know. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. That's been on Facebook. I haven't read the whole thing. I want to because I'm like, okay, now I need to just like take all of these notes from this. So cool.
I feel like Tim Burton just sat down and wrote it and was like, I need it done. I know Tim Burton didn't make it, but he was like, sat down and said, I need it done this way. I want to get this across. And then everyone just went, okay.
Right. What are some old like scary movie.
Japanese horror definitely has a unique taste because when you're watching it, your eyes see things on the screen that your brain doesn't process until later. So it's really creative in how it uses the darkness of screens because something will move in the black of the screen that's the same color as the black, so your brain increases the heightened sensitivity, making you more scared, even though technically you don't see something, but your brain still registers it. There's also really amazing audio cues. There's a lot of YouTube channels that discuss them, where it'll be like the Jaws movie, for example. You know that when you hear darn it, darn it, darn it, your brain's like, oh shit, shark. Japanese horror does something very similar where it'll have very subtle cues that'll lead up to a jump scare, but they're practically inaudible, almost like a dog whistle. Again, your brain picks it up and your heart starts getting faster, you sweat, you're in fight or flight, but you don't understand why because there's nothing on screen yet that technically should be causing this reaction. So the jump scares don't feel cheap. Your body's prepared for it. At least in good Japanese horror. I'm talking like 60s, 70s Japanese horror. They just did an incredible job.
Yeah, I haven't seen any Japanese horror, but the original Halloween movie is still one of my favorites because when that first came out, obviously I wasn't born yet. I think that was like a 1970s movie or something like that. It did a lot of the shadows, and then the music was really good. I love that. And they actually, when Halloween came out again with the 2018 one that brings back Jamie Lee Curtis, they went, first of all, they retconned all of the movies before that basically and said this was the sequel to the original Halloween, which I like.
I heard about that.
Because after the first Halloween movie, they all went down the drain and were horrible. But they retconned it with this, and they brought it back to what it was. They even brought back they even had the credits in the beginning in the same font. It was such a like, whoa, Mom and I appreciated it so much. But because
awesome.
It was great, and they brought back like obviously Mom and I didn't get scared because we don't jump, but it still brought the nice creepiness of they don't need to rely on the gore that a lot of movies do. They just had the creepy shadow and the music, and that's all they needed. And I love horror movies like that. That's actually why I can't watch any of the Saw movies because they're
The
that's
Saw
not
movies are my favorite horror movies. I was gonna wait till you were done, but those are
yeah, I
my
can't
favorite.
stand those. Those aren't horror to me. That's just needless violence, and I'm not a
But
slasher
it's
person.
not needless violence. If you watch the first Saw
I
movie,
can't.
it does feel needless, but once they get to the second and third, they expand upon the character, and it's just absolutely fantastic because he does have a reason for what he does. He's trying to make people more appreciative of life so that way they don't constantly live to die. That was his whole thing because the serial killer, the madman that set it up, basically he had his wife miscarried, he was diagnosed with cancer, and then he tried to commit suicide but failed. So he got a newfound love and desire for life and wanted to introduce other people to the same idea. However, we know he's a twisted fuck. So what ended up happening is he would set people up in the Iron Maidens, where the only way to get the key would be behind their eye. And people would come out of it better than they went in if they survived his games.
Also in pieces, and I cannot stand those movies. I have not seen a single
But there
one.
was a woman who was a drug addict, and he thought she was wasting her life, so he put her in a room. The guy with a cadaver, she had to go into his intestines to free herself. And then when she came out of it, she got completely clean, had a new lease on life. And in the third movie, I believe it was, they showed a support group of all the people who survived his games. And there was one woman who was like, you know what? The only new lease on life I got, the only good thing about his games that I got was that I had to cut off my arm and now I get to park in the disability spot at the mall. And it was just...
And I can't, his justified memes are not justified for me. I think he's a psycho and I just can't. Those
for
movies
him,
are
the ends justify the means. Because in his mind, he was choosing terrible people who needed to make drastic changes in their life. Now, there is some psychology that backs what he says. If you suffer, you're more likely to succeed. However, he takes it way too far and enters into trauma zone.
I hate him. I hate those movies.
I just love that there's
concept.
a psychological basis for it. That's why I like it.
Yeah, he's
it's
psycho.
Not
yeah, he's
pointless
psycho.
gore.
I can't stand it.
I don't like Nightmare on Elm Street.
I've seen quite a few of those movies. They're not my favorites. Obviously, I can't watch them, and I don't really like the Freddy version, the Jason movies.
I don't like the answer for why he does it is he's crazy. Like, that's not a good enough answer for me. I need a reason. I need development.
So is the dude from Saw. He's also crazy.
But he had a point. He was trying to reach something.
The entire wrong way.
He went about it the wrong way. You are 100% correct.
Don't chop
wrong.
Don't make
I don't agree with him. I don't condone his actions at all. But he had a psychological basis for what he was doing. Just saying that Freddy Krueger is crazy isn't enough for me.
I hate them. I've only seen 5 minutes of any of those movies. I flat out refuse to watch them.
Oh, you have to actually finish it. It's well written.
Never. I will never finish a single one of those movies. Ever.
Oh, you're missing out.
I am not missing out. I am happy in my life. I don't need those movies in my life. I would much prefer my Halloween. I like Halloween. What was I going to say? There's this movie on Netflix that's called Hush. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't.
It's really good. I think I watched it with Pagan. This woman is alone in a cabin, all right? And she's deaf. So and it's very freaking well written because they do a great job of showing her, like, so they've got these people. She's got this dude who's trying to kill her and she's alone. Spoiler alert, she kicks ass and it's awesome. But they do it's just very well shot and really well done, and I liked that a lot. What was another one Mom and I watched? I think it was Don't Breathe. I liked that one a lot too, because I like the ones that aren't necessarily, I don't need the gore, okay? The gore, I don't care about the gore. I want the ones that are a little bit more psychological thriller.
Okay. I like psychological horror.
And I love the It movies so much. I've seen the original one.
The original was good. The first one was good. I didn't finish the second one. I got bored. Okay, so It Chapter 1, not the one from the 90s. I was so scared of the original It movie that I was away at college. My friends and I turned off the lights. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. We put on blankets. We were ready to go and be scared. I didn't find It Chapter 1 scary, or it didn't feel like horror to me, even on a psychological level.
First of all, I hate clowns. I'm not like terrified of clowns. Like if a clown came up with me, I'd punch it in the face or like kick it. Like the clowns, the ice show I went to like years ago. I don't like clowns. But I like
they don't bother me. I mean,
but I love the It movies because it's very good at showing, causing you to be tense, and it's like not suspension, suspense, and just kind of like making you know something is about to happen, but you're not sure what is going to happen.
Get that. I never felt like it was super tense. I don't know. I feel like it just didn't hit for me like the original did. The original, I was actually scared, and I rewatched it about a year ago, and I was surprised
that did not scare me at all.
I was scared as a child. I enjoyed it as an adult, but It Chapter 1 just didn't hit me at all. I was like, okay, it's good, it's well written, the acting was amazing. Great acting, but it just didn't really strike me as horror. I never felt that suspense. I never had the suspense of disbelief. I never believed I was in Derry with these kids. Because I had read the book about 6 months before
Yeah,
it chapter 1 came out, and the newer movies are a lot closer than the original was to the book. The book is pretty fucked up.
oh yeah, I know they still didn't include everything from that. I want to read the book.
Because we don't want to see 12-year-olds have an orgy. Sorry, we didn't need
Yeah.
that on screen.
Yeah, but no, I enjoyed, like I said, the original ones did not scare me whatsoever. I watched that with my family, and we're so not scared. We actually giggled throughout it. We were like amused.
So,
And then
Keely, as a child, what movie scared you? It didn't necessarily have to be a horror movie, but what movie scared you as a child?
I don't know, cause see, I don't think like I like Jaws, but it didn't scare me. I watched The Exorcist when I was like 8, and that didn't scare me. I just thought it's cool. Same with like the Alien movies. I wouldn't say anything really scared me. I like take a lot.
Alien was good, and Alien versus Predator and the Predator movies.
Yeah, I like
As a
those.
child, I was terrified of Monsters, Inc. The scene where he yells at Boo scared me as a child. I don't know why. It was just,
Now you're probably gonna laugh at me. In Dumbo, the scene where he's like drunk and the elephants, that always freaked me out.
yeah.
Bubble elephants, that freaked me out. I wouldn't say it scared
I think
me,
he
but
was
it
he
freaked
was
me out.
drunk and on opium, right? That's what happens.
But it was weird and it was like really creepy in my mind. I'm just like, what is going on? Why
Yeah,
is
you
there
felt like you were on
blood?
opium. Well, that's
Right?
because at the time they were still giving opium to children to help them sleep and to get them to stop crying. Yes, they stopped crying, but that's because they were tripping balls and seeing pink elephants. I saw one missed call when I was in middle school.
Saw that too. It's been so long, but and see, I think
Yeah.
that kind of freaked me out. But that's because I was always home alone with the kids by myself.
See, I saw it with my sister and her then boyfriend. So of course, the minute we get home, I changed my ringtone because I felt like I had to, and I freaked the boyfriend out. It was amazing.
I actually sort of lived in a haunted house. We lived in this two-story house that was about like 2 miles away from the high school. Okay, and I remember I got up one night because I was thirsty. So I went downstairs to get me a glass of milk. So I go and get me a glass of milk. I'm still kind of like half asleep, kind of like still waking up. And I'm walking up the stairs, and there's this little boy on the stairs.
Mhm.
Comes to me. I'm thinking it's my little brother Cameron at the time, and gives me a hug, and then he disappears. Now, again, I'm like now awake, like, huh? And so I'm like, okay, that was a little weird. So I go back downstairs around the corner to where Cody and Cameron were sharing a room. They're both passed out. Like, Cameron's legs are on Cody's head. They are passed out. So I'm like, oh yeah, that makes no sense because Cameron just gave me oh my god, that had to not be Cameron because he doesn't fall asleep easy. Okay, like takes him a while. And I also there's another time I was in bed and I woke up and there's a freaking man standing over my bed. I'm like, what the hell? Now the man I wasn't scared of. I was scared of the woman who was in the house. She was creepy and she liked to hang out in between. Okay, you had this long ass hallway. You had my room, you had the bathroom, and then you had Chloe's room. And then down this long hallway was Tristan's room. And in between Tristan and Chloe's room was an attic, like a little half attic thing. So we didn't really use that much. The woman liked to hang out in there. But when I mentioned this to my siblings and my family, they're like, oh my god, so it's not just us. I was
See,
like, oh,
something
okay.
similar happened in my house. See, my great-grandfather used to haunt our house. When I was around 4 years old, my sister and I had bunk beds. I climbed to the top to her section and I fell. According to my mother and my sister, I was falling head first. Like, it was not going to be good for a child, Caroline. And then I stopped midair about 2 feet off the ground and landed on my butt. That I remember is stopping and landing. So apparently, and my cat was also really creepy and liked to meow at everything at night. So one day I went out to see what boxes the cat was yelling at one night, and there's just like a specter or an outline of someone rocking in the chair. And I was like, what the fuck? But I never felt threatened by him. I had seen him several times growing up. My mom apparently had seen him also, again, usually had something to do with the cat. Now, when my great grandmother passed away because she lived with us, we didn't see him anymore. I didn't know him. I was too little when he passed away. But our theory is that he was waiting for her to move on.
One night we were all downstairs, right? All of us, even the cats. And so we're all downstairs and we hear fighting and screaming upstairs. So we all just kind of look at each other and we're like, well. So whenever I was home alone, I always slept downstairs. I felt safe in my room because the man, he never felt threatening ever.
Yeah.
He never felt threatening. Yeah, he freaks me the fuck out because he's just looming over me. But then I remember looking out of the corner of my eye and there's a woman. The woman scared me and I hated going into the attic because I remember reaching in and just a hand grabbing me. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Closing the attic right now. I wish I remembered the address of the place so I could go and Google it and be like, has anyone died here? Because I'm telling you, there was something up with this house.
Now, Keely, over the pandemic, you recommended to me the book Carrie by Stephen King. Let's talk about that since it's something we both read. It resonated with me and it wasn't really horror, but psychologically it hurt me.
That was the first Stephen King book I had ever read, so I had to really get used to his writing style.
My introduction to Stephen King was 11/22/63.
Yeah, but I read Carrie first. I need to read another one of his books. I just haven't gotten around to it. But
read more and then read 11/22/63, which is the night Kennedy got shot in Dallas, Texas. So it brings like the whole connected world together because this guy is traveling through time. He goes to Derry, he experiences Carrie, he learns The Shining. Like it really connects some of the universe together.
It's cool. But no, I read Carrie and I felt really bad for Carrie. Like, I was like, is she supposed to be a villain? Because I feel bad for her being picked on because she's different and then having an overbearing, super religious mother and just, I felt bad for her and no one was really nice to her. Like, yeah,
not
sure, the gym teacher was not until towards the end. And I guess the gym teacher was kind of nice, but even the gym teacher, especially in the book, was just like, you're weird. Like the gym teacher could have done more.
Oh, 100%. What really got under my skin was how all the guys treated her and they treated her like a game. Teenagers could be very cruel to each other. We all know that. But they just took it to a whole new level. Like the one girl spoilers. The one girl let Carrie take her boyfriend to prom, and he genuinely seemed nice and he wasn't upset. He brought her on the date. He did this whole thing for her. He seemed really nice, but the other guys were dicks.
Yeah, like he seemed genuinely nice.
It wasn't until the last 30 pages where I didn't hate everyone in the book.
Right. It's kind of like one of those things you're reading it and I've seen both. I've seen like the 1970 version movie and then like the newer one. It was actually on the other day.
Are they good?
Not bad.
The ending is phenomenal, and it just shows the destructive raw power.
You're like rooting for Carrie. You're like, is she supposed to be? Am I supposed to be rooting for her? Is she a bad guy? Because I'm rooting for you, girl. You have at it. You go. Got you. I'm all right with this.
The reason why I probably wouldn't like a movie adaptation of the book is because the book is written from the point of view of a reporter. The original Phantom of the Opera, written by Gaston Leroux, is the same style. you don't just get the story of Christine and the Phantom and the Opera House. It's written from the point of view of a reporter who's providing evidence on events that happened. It's such a unique perspective, and Stephen King nails it with Carrie because he's talking about other children who have shown aptitude of powers. He's bringing in accounts from people that if you just told it from, say, Carrie's perspective or a third person point of view, you wouldn't get that. It would lose something. He brings in a lot more information. He brings in images and proof of what she does. Especially at the end when he's talking to like gas station owners and people who've seen the explosions. It's such a unique way to tell the reader what happened and when.
Mm-hmm. And with the movies that they have, they follow Carrie a lot throughout it. They're not bad. I like them. I think like I said, you feel bad for Carrie always. Mom and I watched Thinner, which is another Stephen King. I actually have the books that I need to continue reading.
I've heard Thinner was okay at times, but overall people were like, eh.
Yeah, I wasn't.
How I felt about, like, what was it, The Dark Tower? I have to read that book.
The Dark Tower. I want to read the book too, but you see, they changed the ending of the book, the movie. Like, the movie was not supposed to, in the book, spoiler alert, in the book, the boy dies.
Yeah.
He is so consumed by his revenge that he lets an innocent boy die. But they changed that in the movie, or he doesn't die and the boy becomes his protege.
I see what they were trying to do because they want to expand upon the world and they want to have it more like a buddy film with the mentor and the mentee, but it takes away some of the dramatic impact. Stephen King is really good at, and James Patterson does this too, where he subverts expectations, but it still fits the rules of the world. Like, you expect the mentor to get over his rage to help train the mentee and then protects the mentee. That's what you've come to expect from movie tropes. However, Stephen King is like, no, he's a human. I don't want him. He's not a human, but he's a person. I want him to have a personality. We're gonna tell you that this man is consumed by his rage and nothing has ever distracted him from that. He's not going to suddenly go out of his way for this kid. He's not going to leave it all behind, every ounce of revenge in his body, for this child that he just met. Stephen King is like, that's completely against this character.
And I do appreciate that.
It's different.
And it's different. I like that he goes against the cliche that normally happens, because that normally happens.
Tim Burton, because I know we're both Tim Burton fans.
Okay, Mom hates this movie, but I love Beetlejuice.
I saw Beetlejuice as a child. I should not have. However, I enjoyed it. I always thought it was a fun movie because death is something that's very interesting to me. I wish the musical had succeeded because it was on Broadway for a couple of months, but it fell completely flat.
I didn't even know there was a musical.
Yeah, it absolutely flopped. There's one good song. I listened to the score a little bit. There's one good song.
One of my favorite Tim Burton movies is actually Corpse Bride. It's one of my favorites. I love that movie.
Everyone's obsessed with that movie, and I'm just like, okay. Like, I never really got into it.
Watch it with new eyes. I love that movie. And my favorite scene from that movie actually used to be my background on the computer. It's when the Corpse Bride turns into butterflies. Like, she walks.
That is a beautiful scene.
She walks into the moonlight and turns into butterflies, and it's so
Tim Burton needs to be animated because they just have so much creative freedom.
I love Coraline.
I didn't see. I need to read the book as an adult because I read the book. I didn't like the book. I watched the movie. I didn't like the movie. Maybe because it's My Name is Caroline, and once that came out, everyone felt the need to call me Coraline.
But your name's Caroline.
Yes.
Sweet
Last I checked.
Caroline. Paige's favorite movie is The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is good. I like that movie.
Great movie. Absolute classic. You know I'm a huge, huge Sweeney Todd fan. I know
I
every
do.
song in that movie.
I love Sweeney Todd, and again, that's a
The
movie that Mom
Demon
hates, but I love
Barber of
Sweeney
Fleet
Todd.
Street. When I did the
When Johnny Depp kills the cast of Harry Potter, basically.
Yes. First of all, Tim Burton needs to stop hooking up Johnny Depp with his ex-wife. In every single movie he's written, he has Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter in some sort of relationship. It's kind of funny.
Didn't Tim Burton do Sleepy Hollow?
He did one of the Sleepy Hollows. There's been like 30. The Headless Horseman is a fan favorite.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting story.
It's a classic. I mean, it's from what, Salem?
Do
Because
you
I don't think
know?
it's pagan. It's not that old.
Yeah. Do you know Edward Scissorhands?
I have seen it. I'm not as obsessed as other people are. I just kind of look
Just
at it and
something.
go, okay.
There's just something about that movie that I just am so fascinated by. I don't know why, but it's a really beautiful movie too. I really like how it's shot.
It is shot very well. It's well written. Just the concept doesn't strike me. It's not a movie I could watch a lot. It's like every couple of years when I forget it exists, and then I'm like, oh, let's watch it.
But no, I haven't seen it in a while, but the Edward Scissorhands, Corpse Bride are two of my favorites.
No. My absolute favorite is Sweeney Todd. When I was in London as part of a research team, I worked on Fleet Street.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there is a barber shop. Of course, it's not the barber shop, but some sarcastic asshole was like, I'm going to open a barber shop on Fleet Street. So, of course, it's the Demon Barber Shop. I remember walking down the street and just being like, this is amazing. Like, I'm here. I love that movie. I would kill to see a Broadway or off-Broadway production of it. Just, the score is beautiful. The way it's shot, the twists, the turns. I could talk about that movie all day.
But when it comes to horror movies, I like the psychological thrillers. I think that's why I like my brain just went. I like the psychological thrillers, the ones that don't rely on gore, the ones where it's a lot about the shadows and the suspense when you hear the music that's coming, like, you know, Jaws, because the second you hear that movie, you're like, oh, there's a shark. And no one has managed to capture that same feel. They always try to copy Jaws and they always fail. Like, they just can't.
I feel like Paranormal
know,
Activity got pretty close, the first one. I saw the first 3 Paranormal Activity movies in theater. The second and third one, absolutely hated. But the first one, I had a very similar feeling to Jaws, where you had this subtle expectation of you knew when things were going to happen, but not the exact moment. So your body went into that fear, that fight or flight, and then it happened on the screen, and then you jumped. Like, it had a great aspect to it that matched what Jaws does for me.
Yeah. When I was in DC, we went and saw The Nun. Now, story-wise, The Nun was really lackluster, but I liked how it was shot. I appreciated how it was shot. And they actually did, I liked the way they ended it, because you think that they defeated it, right? But they didn't. And I appreciated that. They didn't, like, they're like, yeah, the guy's totally not possessed. And then later, you're like, oh, shoot.
The Conjuring did a similar sort of thing, spoiler alert, where it was like, oh, they've taken care of it and it's never going to happen again, and then bam, Conjuring 2.
Actually, a really good movie that was actually a short originally. It's on Prime. It's Lights Out. It is a I love that movie. I think it's from like 2016,
Yeah.
and it is
It won
so
a
good.
lot of awards.
It's so good. It is so well shot. It has got a very interesting but simple plot. And by simple, I'm not saying it's like simple. I'm saying it's simple in the fact that they don't try to overwhelm it with everything. Like
Yeah.
it's so you'll just have to watch it. And
I
plus,
like horror with a point. Like, there's a lot of Japanese anime horror where the whole idea is there is something going on that can be explained. Like, a lot of American horror ends up
that's
being
what Lights Out
just
does. Lights Out is
because.
good. Lights Out has a really
Because
good,
Lights Out,
interesting.
if I'm not mistaken, is inspired by South Korean horror.
I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
so good. Like when you figure out what's happening, you're like, oh, okay.
That's what I
And
love
it's
about horror in Japanese anime. Most
you
of the
have to
time, you
watch it.
get that reveal and you just go, oh, and then you come way more immersed in the story.
I think that they do a really good job of the girl, the daughter, kind of unearthing her mother's history and finding answers as to what's going on. And it's very I was very impressed with it, and you'll just have to watch it. And also Maria Bello is an amazing actress.
I was watching a Let's Player on YouTube play some horror games, and one of them, Supernatural, actually ruined the ending for me because I'm watching the game and I'm listening to the things and they're talking a lot about cannibalism. They're in the middle of the woods. I'm like, is this a Wendigo? Because of the several episodes of Supernatural that include Wendigos. And then at the end, yeah, that was the surprise, is that it was a Wendigo, a human turned monster because of cannibalism. And I was just like, oh, that kind of ruined it for me. It took some of the fun out of it. I guessed it
Yeah.
halfway through the Let's Play. It was still a really good game. Just my own brain betrayed me. I do that with
Yeah.
Black Mirror too, because I used to watch a lot of Twilight Zone. So I know to expect the unexpected and you could guess the twist. I watched Black Mirror with some of my college friends and I almost immediately guess it, usually about 10 minutes in. I know what's gonna happen and what the twist is. And my friends, we used to make a game out of it. They would get angry with me.
I've never watched Black Mirror, but I also never really liked Twilight Zone either. So Black Mirror is not something that I'm really interested in.
It's good, it's well written. I like twists. I wish it was one thing I wish Twilight Zone and Black Mirror did. I wish they were a little more interconnected. In Black Mirror, there are Easter eggs, but there's no really network of the episodes where you could see if someone really sat down and, like with the meme where he's got all the papers up on the board and he's trying to figure out how Sherlock survived the fall of the hospital. Like, I want something like that where some crazy fan, some guy on Reddit is going to connect all the episodes. I wish they had put a little more thought and just put a little thing in each episode that connected them all.
I like American Horror Story. Murder House is my
I
favorite
never got
season,
into
along with
them.
Coven.
I
It's really
tried.
good.
I
Really
tried.
good.
It wasn't for me.
And Hotel with Lady Gaga.
I
First of
know.
all, most of the time when it comes to singers being an actor, you're like, okay, this is gonna fail. It always fails. She's a good actress. She does a really good job. Like she's great. I love her in Hotel.
There's a lot of good horror video games. Like, a lot of people are playing Amnesia Rebirth right now. So, Amnesia is known for really hitting the human side of how dark can people go. There are supernatural elements, but let's take, for example, one of the past stories. Basically, this guy, it's it's turn of the century, late 1800s. He goes to he builds a giant machine because he wants to help the world. He goes to an Aztec temple looking for a certain element to power said machine. He brings his young sons with him. He is shown visions of World War I and World War II at the temple. He kills his sons to spare them from the future and then uses his machine to try to kill half the population. However, there's a trick. He loses his memory, thus amnesia, and he goes through the process of he wakes up in his machine and he's told that his sons are dying. They're drowning in waste. And the only way to save them is to turn the machine on to drain the waste. So his own identity, his own sense of self, tricks him into trying to kill the population to save his sons that he already killed. Just the way amnesia tells their stories is amazing. It really is like the epitome of what humans can do to themselves. Rebirth just came out. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm interested to see what the twist is. I've guessed a little bit of it, but I hope they do something that I don't expect. And then you have Bendy and the Ink Machine, which is a horror game based off of like a Disney knockoff, which had an interesting premise. I actually spoke with some of the developers at New York Comic Con the first year it came out. It has a really cool premise, but the storytelling fell flat in the middle. It started off strong, finished well, but completely lost it in the middle. Just
yeah,
upsetting.
that happens sometimes. It is 4:57 here.
Yeah. I don't know. My friends haven't answered me, so if you want to keep going.
Oh, my brain totally went blank.
That's okay. Let's see. Bye! They're going to the bowling alley. I'm not going because I was supposed to be video chatting with my friends tonight, which I don't know if that's still happening. Let's see.
Yep. My brain just went totally blank.
Trying to think of really good examples of Japanese horror that I've seen lately. Maybe not horror in the traditional sense. The movie that inspired Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games was originally a Japanese live-action film where they put students from one class on an abandoned island and only one could survive. That's why a lot of people get angry at Suzanne Collins because she totally ripped off the idea. And they had like a center hub with all the items that they would need to survive. And Suzanne Collins turned that into the cornucopia. It's pretty one-to-one. But the original Japanese movie was good.
The way I see it, everything is ripped off of something.
That's true. There's no such thing as an original story.
At some point, everyone has done it.
That's one of the reasons why I saw A Quiet Place in theaters.
I love The Quiet Place. I want to see the second one.
Yeah.
I really like the concept of A Quiet Place. On Netflix.
I didn't love the ending, but I loved the premise of the movie. There was only one jump scare that really got me. Spoilers. So there's little boy, he's playing with the toy accidentally makes a noise, right?
Yeah,
you know which scene I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And you think the monsters are gonna come after the little boy, but the first time they go after a raccoon or something that's on the road, and they come in and swipe the animal on the road, and I jumped because it was the first real jump scare, and it was a good introduction. Again, super spoilers for A Quiet Place. They do eventually go for the boy. But they get that animal first, and that's what made me jump.
Yeah, it was. I really liked A Quiet Place. I want to see the second one on
The
Netflix.
girl is actually deaf. It's real ASL that
Yeah.
they're using. I
hmm
really appreciated that.
I really appreciated that too. That they actually, and it's very well done and very well written. Um, let's see, on Netflix there's Bird Box. Well, I liked Bird Box and I was intrigued by the idea. They never really go into detail about what exactly it is. Like,
That's what bothers me.
that
I
bothers
need
me too.
information. I need a who, what, where, when, why. Like
Yeah,
with zombie outbreaks. I need to know if it's the T virus. I need to know if it's a man-made virus that made the zombies. I need to know if it's a genetic mutation. I need to know, like, outbreak. There was a patient zero. I need backstory, even if it's just headlines. Like, that's what A Quiet Place did. You have to read the newspapers on the table to get the backstory. That's
yeah.
rewatchability, which a lot of horror movies miss.
I think, and then there's another movie on Netflix it tries to do the same thing as A Quiet Place. Um, Silence, I think. It's got
Yeah.
Stanley Tucci in it, and then the chick from Sabrina, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And it's not a bad movie, but and as always, Stanley Tucci is just, mwah, love him. He's great. He can do no wrong. And it's it it tries to do what Quiet Place does, and while it doesn't quite succeed, it's still not a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem when it comes to horror movies, especially ones like A Quiet Place, Bird Box, Silence, any zombie movie, is okay. So you got to think a movie runs at the most maybe 2 hours, two and a
Yeah.
half. So they have to think of a way to give us a backstory, but not bog it down with the backstory. You know what I
But they
mean?
also have to give enough details. That's something The
Exactly.
Shining does very well. Give us story that, like you said, doesn't bog it down, but give us details that enhance the storytelling that makes sense within the world that it's written.
Yeah. Like if you like and I read somewhere, and I think this can apply to not only writing, but also in movies, that said, the article said, start the story at the very last second. Like start it where the action is, or where the action is just getting ready to start. And
That
actually,
is something Silence of the Lambs does incredibly well.
that is one of my favorite movies. I wrote a paper on that movie.
I also
I love
watched it
that
for a
movie.
film class.
Yeah, I watched it for a film class, and I wrote
I
a
had
paper
seen
on
it
it.
before, don't get me wrong,
Me too.
because it's a classic and everyone should watch it, but I remember watching it again as a film student and completely saw it differently.
It's such a
I
great.
need
It's
to read
very.
Red Dragon.
I need to read all of them, but no, it's so well done. But like, it's just, and I think that in I think especially in horror movies, they need to stop at they need to start it at the last second. Like, I'm not saying don't give us backstory, because Bird Box bothered me because we never really knew what they saw.
Oh, I had way more issues with Bird Box than just that.
So like, I didn't understand why they couldn't look at something, and I mean, I didn't understand. It's
See,
like,
I
I
wish
need
they
to
had done
know.
something. Bird Box is an interesting premise. You look at it, you go crazy. It reminds me of the Doctor Who episode of The Silence, where
Yeah,
you look at the silence and then you forget that you see it. So the characters in Doctor Who use markers to mark themselves. They see it, they mark themselves, and then when they look away, they forget. But they look down and they remember that they saw something, even if they don't remember what it was. I
yeah,
wish Bird Box had done something along that lines where the viewer sees them, but they don't.
yeah. Because I needed a little bit more information.
I just didn't care about any of the characters.
Not really.
Like, crap, what's the movie I'm thinking of? The Purge. There we go.
I love the Purge
The
movies.
Purge,
I
the
love
first
them.
one was good. The last one, the first Purge, is actually about my hometown, Staten Island.
I liked the first Purge, but you know what I liked? I liked that. And okay, so you have the Purge, and then you go to the Purge Anarchy,
Yeah.
and one of the main dudes who plays Rumlow in the winner in the Marvel movies. They bring his character back for the election year, and I'm like, finally, I was looking for a connection between these movies. Like, I get they are part of the same, verse, okay, but I wanted to see characters that was in the other movie. So when they brought him into the election year movie, I was like, finally, yes, thank you, yes. I was so excited about
I
that. And
didn't
I
really
just,
care about any of the characters. I liked the premise. I liked the commentary on socioeconomic status because if you watch the first Purge, you realize that the whole thing is about getting rid of homelessness and poor people. That's the
mhm.
whole premise. I enjoyed the commentary of society that it was about, but the individual families that they presented weren't interesting to me.
I think what they really needed was more of a connection between all those movies, which, like I said, is why I appreciated that they brought back a character into the election year.
See,
I
that's something
appreciated they brought Frank Grillo.
The Cloverfield movies did well, was
I
they
haven't seen
felt,
those.
okay, they felt like separate identities, but there was a fun connectiveness. It wasn't super obvious. It's a bit of a reach, but there is a connection between them, kind of like the Final Destination movies, where when you watch all of them, they feel like individual movies, but then they throw in like little bits where you're like, oh, okay. You could see how one thing led to another.
Mm-hmm. So, like, when you watch the first Purge movie, you have that family, and then you go to a different one, and then the only thing that kind of connects Anarchy with election year is Frank Grillo. That's his name. Is Frank Grillo's character.
See, I
And
didn't
I
care
like
enough
his,
about the characters to remember their names.
well, that's the actor's name. The character's name's like Leo. That's the only thing that really connected them. And so I like the premise, and I love those movies. They're one of my favorites because I love the premise. I always thought there should have been more of a connection between them, and like the first Purge, I actually thought was better than all of the other ones because it is the first Purge, and there's just something very intense and focused and
I wish the first
about
Purge
it.
had come out before election year. I wasn't in love with the order that they told the stories in. I
Yeah,
could have done without Anarchy and election year and just had the Purge and the first Purge. I would have been perfectly fine with just those two.
I wonder if we're gonna. I think the Purge is Blumhouse too. I
Okay.
think. I think so. And like I said, the Blumhouse is always a hit or miss. You're either gonna get a decent movie or you're gonna get a really bad movie. It kind of depends on the day. But
I gotcha.
my
Like,
back
I've
hurt.
heard good things about The Heritage, which is a B-rate horror film. I've heard it's okay. What else?
Everyone went mad over Hereditary or something like
Yeah,
that.
I heard
And
that was good.
Midsummer. I haven't seen either of those, but everyone went mad about those ones. And Parasite. Haven't seen Parasite.
I have seen the Japanese anime movie Parasite, which is phenom. I have not seen the South Korean adaptation. It's not an adaptation, it's a completely different movie. But I haven't seen the South Korean Parasite. I've seen the Japanese anime movie Parasite. And you have What's the Japanese anime movie I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
There's the one that inspired the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Inception. That was originally a Japanese horror movie, but it was much better animated. You also have the blue is the warmest color. I think I'm mixing up movies.
Antebellum is supposed to be good. I know you haven't seen it, but the New Mutants is actually kind of horror-like, and it's actually really good.
Yeah.
I went in there and judged that movie hardcore, but it was actually a good movie. Fortunately, we're never going to see those characters again, but
Yeah. Just
never really got into the Grudge movies. The Invisible Man was a really good, like, psychological thriller. Paige and I saw that in theaters before
I wanted
COVID.
to see the Candyman. I've heard. Is that what it's called?
Candyman 2,
Yeah.
because I've seen the original one.
I haven't. It's been recommended to me. I just haven't gotten to it.
Oh, I'm so excited. But yeah, and then Antebellum is supposed to be good. I haven't seen Us or Get Out yet, but I think the same person who did those did Antebellum.
I've seen Get Out. It was good. I wasn't as in love with it as everyone else in the world seemed to be.
Yeah, and Fantasy Island seems kind of like. Have you heard of that one?
I haven't.
It's like it's weird. The premise is, I don't know. It's interesting. Basically, it's this dude makes the secret dreams of his lucky guests come true. A luxurious but remote tropical resort. But when the fantasies turn into nightmares, the guests have to solve the island's mystery in order to escape with their lives. So I'm like,
All right.
The Hunt, which kind of feels like it's trying to be like The Purge.
I don't know. I feel like horror in the last 5 years or so has gotten very stale.
But the Lights Out is probably the one that I'm like really freaking loved.
Okay.
And like I said, even though it's not it's classified as horror, but it's more the New Mutants is actually it's actually really creepy. Like, it didn't scare me, but they did a really good job with creep factor.
Okay. Perfect Blue, that's the name of the movie I was thinking of. Paprika inspired Inception, and Perfect Blue is a Japanese anime movie that is mind-blowing. I wish I had seen it on drugs. It's fantastic. It messes with your head, but both Paprika and Perfect Blue are phenomenal Japanese anime horror films.
That's cool. What else can we say?
I recently rewatched the first Resident Evil movie.
I think the first one is still the best one.
I liked it more the first time I saw it. Now I caught a lot of the campiness and how bad it was. Speaking of campiness, the movie that I really like is The Cube and The Fifth Sense. They're over the top, they're campy, the characters don't entirely make sense. Basically, the cube is a social experiment. People are thrown into the cube, the rooms change, and they have to try to get out. It's excellent. There's a second movie of the cube, which makes fun of the first one. They're good, campy horror films.
Yeah, this is not so bad. I've seen every single Tremors movie that has ever been released. They released the new one on Netflix, and I watched it. They're horrible. They're so trashy. I love them.
I don't usually go for trashy horror. I don't know, just something
And it's
about
not
it.
even horror. It's such a B-rated movie.
Like
So
My Babysitter is a Vampire, like just doesn't do it for me. I was
okay.
watching one where it was like a college girl, just didn't do it for me. There's a new one coming out where it's the college or high school student and the serial killer switch bodies. I've been getting
See,
the
and I'm
trailer for
intrigued.
that a lot.
And I'm intrigued by that one.
I'm interested, but it looks campy, so I'm immediately turned off.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, so far the only ones that's like the one of the best ones that I've seen this year has been Lights Out. I definitely would recommend it.
All right, I'll have to see. I have to watch Lights Out and the South Korean Parasite.
Thank you for listening to us on this
But
spooky episode.
yes, we enjoy talking to each other. We enjoy everyone who listens, and we hope that you listen to us next time. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Ciao.
Bye.